Local programming on KRWG Public Media made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
This is KRWG Public Media, TV, radio, online. News that matters. Now, across the Mesilla Valley and the borderland, the stories that shape our community. From the KRWG Broadcast Center at New Mexico State University, this is Newsmakers.
Thank you for joining us for Newsmakers. I'm KC Counts. June 24th, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled on Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization. Rather than ruling strictly on that case and upholding the state law that would limit abortion rights to 15 weeks of pregnancy, the Supreme Court overturned the landmark 1973 Roe versus Wade ruling. Women simply aren't granted a right to have an abortion by the U.S. Constitution, according to the majority opinion written by Justice Samuel Alito. It returns the decisions made on abortion law to the states. About half of U.S. states have already or are expected to limit abortion rights. Some, like Texas, will not even keep exceptions for rape or incest. Today, we're joined by New Mexico State Representative Micaela Lara Cadena, who was instrumental in the state legislature's effort to maintain abortion rights in New Mexico. Lots of territory to cover here today. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, tell us what motivated you to run for office and how long have you been representing your district?
What an immense question. I'm honored to have served New Mexico's House District 33 for almost 4 years now. I'm getting to the end of my second term. I remember when I first heard the seat was opening up, and I thought of my little ones, and I thought of especially women of color that I trusted and wanted to see in positions of power. I made a few calls, desperately tried to convince one of them to run for office, and eventually, because of their own timing and their own lives, it seemed like the person in the place to do this was me. And so I was born and raised in this district. My family's been in this valley for generations, and I get to raise my little ones here. So I was proud to come home, return home, and now be bringing our Southern New Mexico values to Santa Fe.
And tell me a little bit about your background in policy on this specific issue.
Yeah, certainly. I knew what I was walking into by the time I got to the New Mexico Capitol. I'd done over a decade of issue-based lobbying on issues that matter to New Mexico women and families every day. So in that capacity, I'd worked towards access to reproductive health and a full range of pregnancy-related care people may need in their lives, from contraception to high-quality prenatal care and labor and delivery with home birth midwives like those that I'd had access to. And since then, I wanted to make sure that the ways that our New Mexicans stood up for abortion as a value, because of our faith, because of our identities, I wanted to make sure those kind of perspectives were centered in national conversations about abortion access. So that's what I do now.
Many U.S. states have laws dating back to the early 1900s still on the books which could determine abortion access. In New Mexico, in 1969, New Mexico and a few other states for that matter passed laws that made it illegal to perform an abortion except in the case of rape or incest or if a woman's life was indeed at risk. When Roe was decided, it nullified those laws, of course, and in 2019 an effort was made to repeal that law in New Mexico. It failed in the Senate. By 2021, the state Senate looked a little bit different. Certainly. And the bill passed. Can you talk a little bit about that process and how we came to that place?
Yeah. So New Mexico, as you named, like many states, had what we call now pre-Roe bans. These were bans that were in place many times for decades or centuries. The ban we see next door in Texas has actually been on the books since 1854. So many of us knew that have done this work that there were states across the country that were frankly in a race to pass unconstitutional abortion bans in an effort to get to the Supreme Court and one day do what they've effectively succeeded in overturning Roe v. Wade. So some of us had said for a couple of years, that law in New Mexico is from 1969. It's antiquated. It doesn't reflect where our families and our politics need to be today. And it's time to get that law off the books just in case. It's real that many of our allies, people who believe in abortion access, said, that's never gonna happen. We don't need to waste the time. We don't need to waste the political capital. But thankfully, and I think and appreciate every single day, the indigenous leaders, the Black women and people, the communities of color across New Mexico that said, this is coming. We know what white supremacy and oppression looks like. So let's make sure that New Mexico is ready to go so that our state, in our communities, we will be able to keep our clinics open, our hearts open, our doors open for both our communities and people from around the country who already come to our state seeking care.
What had to happen in order to get that law repealed?
For me, it's really important to name that message and messengers matter. I am a Catholic, I'm a Chicana, I'm a mom, and often when we hear these highly stigmatizing and divisive debates about abortion, they don't reflect the nuances or the complexities of people's lives. So yes, there had been a hard vote in the Senate, and eventually some of those senators were challenged based on their failure to support people in making their own personal decisions about their bodies and lives. So the Senate looked different. I was proud this year, or this time around, the second time around, to sponsor, be a primary sponsor with my dear friend and colleague, Senator Linda Lopez. And in that conversation, we, as Catholics, as mothers, as Chicana New Mexicans, were able to center those values and make clear that in New Mexico, we stand with the majority of our communities in naming that we believe in abortion, or we are ready for abortion access, because we know that no matter what someone's own belief is, that they can hold that own moral belief and still trust other New Mexicans to make that decision for themselves.
Justice Alito's majority opinion was leaked, very unusual. Did you expect that it would look the same on June 24th, or did you have hope that it would change somehow?
Once that leaked opinion was out, I and many across the country were pretty devastated. We expected that to stand pretty closely to what it was, and it did. I would have to say, to see that leaked opinion, I was a bit surprised. I had hoped that when SCOTUS chose the Mississippi ban out of all the cases around the country, that because it was asking whether states had the right to ban abortion prior to viability, that ban was at 15 weeks. I was hoping that that was an indication that the courts were going to drop the permission for states to ban from viability to 15 weeks as a way of finding potentially some compromise. So when that leaked opinion came out, we were pretty devastated, but realized at that time that we were losing Roe.
Well, and you had to wonder when the court did not slap down the Texas law that there was some writing on the wall at that point. And obviously there are strong opinions on both sides. Now in Las Cruces, a rally was held in support of abortion rights at Pioneer Women's Park. KRWG's Anthony Moreno was there to hear their concerns and filed this report.
Hello everyone, and thank you for being here. Appreciate it. We really shouldn't have to be, right? But thank you for being here.
After the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, a coalition of reproductive rights groups and supporters gathered at Pioneer Women's Park in Las Cruces to voice their concerns. Kat Sanchez, policy co-director of Bold Futures, a reproductive justice organization, addressed those in attendance.
Abortion access in New Mexico remains legal. Because we've worked very hard in coalition with other organizations to be where we're at and to repeal the ban, because we know how important it is for people to access the care that they need.
The legal right to abortion is something that's been a major concern for New Mexico State Representative Joanne Ferrari, who has worked for years to get a pre-Roe v. Wade law off the books that criminalized abortion in the state. She says in 2021 that legislation was passed after the election of more progressive state senators.
It's kind of like the bright light in the middle of all this darkness, and we are glad that we were able to have all the different allies helping get people to vote for more progressive Democrats so that we would have those in the Senate, the votes, and now we can be a safe haven for women in states that aren't so lucky.
The decision by the Supreme Court to overturn Roe v. Wade also has some LGBTQ activists worried about what may be next. At the rally, Gage Burnett, a transgendered man, told us what he is really concerned about.
So I'm here because, like I think most people here, I was really, really upset by the Supreme Court ruling this morning. And in particular, what I'm really concerned about is the fact that the decision mentions as potentially unsettled precedent so many other issues such as interracial marriage, LGBT rights, and other rights to privacy that we take for granted now. And so to me, this is a first very large step towards a much more dangerous future for people like me and for the people who are gathered here today.
Support for those who may now travel to New Mexico to access an abortion was a focus at the rally. But Jackie Aguirre with Progress Now New Mexico says she has some concerns about groups who may now relocate to the state to help provide abortion access.
I will also say that a lot of folks from around the country will probably come here and want to provide some sort of access, and I fear that they won't do it the right way, which is communicating with our communities. And the way we have reproductive justice is when we work together and when we are working intentionally with our communities and with people here.
Aguirre says that the court's decision will impact some communities more than others.
Well, it's always people of color. It's Black, Indigenous people of color that are living here. It's undocumented folks that are already living here. It's people who are houseless, people who struggle financially. Those are the people that really struggle. And I may say it's also LGBTQ communities who struggle, because it's not just women that have abortions. It's trans folks, it's queer folks, it's people who are non-binary and gender expanding.
Gage Burnett says that this decision also creates more fear for communities.
It's scary to be alive and to be me in the world right now. It's scary as a person who's capable of getting pregnant. It's scary as a person who needs to access gender-affirming care. It's scary as a person who has other friends and who's connected to a community, not just in New Mexico, but in places where these things aren't guaranteed. Accessing abortion services, accessing gender-affirming care, these are already things that are terrifying steps to take under the best of circumstances. And criminalizing these steps makes it even harder for people to seek what is ultimately life-saving care.
Working together and organizing to protect access to abortion is what many stressed at the rally. For KRWG Public Media, I'm Anthony Moreno.
In a moment, we'll hear what some elected officials who support the Supreme Court decision had to say. But first, what's your reaction to that gathering?
It makes me proud to see that our community, just like so many across New Mexico, is clearly ready to stand up and demonstrate our values. And again, what we always say in New Mexico is people have centered this as part of what it means to respect each other and to treat each other with dignity. And you clearly see that on as we see the rage, the emotions, the readiness to make sure our state remains a place where people can access the care they want and need.
State Representative Crystal Diamond issued a statement following the decision. She said, quote, "Today the U.S. Supreme Court overturned an outdated opinion and rightfully returned the issue of abortion to the states. Tragically, in New Mexico, Planned Parenthood and radical progressives have worked overtime to ensure that nothing will change in response to this historic decision. Elective abortions through all 9 months will remain completely legal. Minors will still be able to obtain abortions without any parental involvement. And with several states now limiting abortions to the first 5 months, New Mexico will soon become the late-term abortion capital of the country." She goes on to say, while the governor and her pro-abortion allies in the legislature brag about these infamous acts, I stand with the majority of New Mexicans who want to strengthen our families, protect women and children, and address the root causes of our state's problems rather than perpetuating them. Representative Lara Cadena, what is your reaction to that statement?
I'm certainly proud of the strong working relationship Senator Diamond and I have, in particularly because we show up together for what it looks like to represent NMSU and other institutions. But on this point, Senator Diamond is just wrong. I'm proud to have studied and learned and captured the insight of New Mexicans around these values and beliefs over many, many years. And what's clear and what we've shown, especially in our rural communities and across our communities of faith, if you ask New Mexicans whether they can hold their own moral belief about this issue and still trust one another to make this deeply personal and complex decision for themselves, over 70% of New Mexicans, again in our rural communities, across our communities of faith, say yes. They respect and trust each other to make these decisions for each other to make these decisions for ourselves.
From U.S. Representative Yvette Herrell, Quote, in the Dobbs decision, the Supreme Court has finally returned the question of abortion to the 50 states and restored the democratic right of the American people to defend the unborn. Now it is our responsibility as Americans to build a society where every mother and child are protected, supported, and cherished. Today, life wins. In 1973, the Supreme Court disregarded the Constitution, ignored science, and defied the will of the American people by imposing abortion on demand across the country. Since then, our nation has lost over 63 million of her most vulnerable citizens to this tragic practice. Herrell spoke of the importance of protecting and supporting women and children. Do you see a reflection of that sentiment in legislation?
I see Representative Herrell speaking as a hypocrite. I have worked my life to protect kids and families and mamas and making sure that in New Mexico they have room to thrive. One of the ways that I'm ready to do that is to have real conversations about what it takes to keep kids in school. And as someone who owns and keeps firearms in our house, I'm ready to have conversations about responsible gun ownership. Because when I look across the country, if we're ready to talk about what it means to protect life, we need to have serious conversations, from guns to climate change to making sure all of our young people and our families have access to the full range of healthcare they need, whether they're having some kind of dental problem or they have a toe falling off. So I'm ready to actually put those statements into practice.
A group of more than 100 economists wrote and submitted an amicus brief to the court that spelled out the possible consequences for women who don't have access to abortion services. Can you tell us what that looks like?
What we know today is that the majority of people having abortion are already mothers. Some of those folks want kids. They simply cannot afford them. So when we build a country where people have access to living wage jobs, when people have access to affordable childcare, when people have room to raise their little ones in safe neighborhoods, then we can talk about what it means to create policies that would somehow take away people's rights. But the majority of these people having abortions, of these people who are making their own private decisions, are already parents and frankly deserve room to be trusted to make these decisions for themselves. We'll never walk in their shoes and never know what they're facing.
Supporters of strict abortion laws suggest that adoption is an option for women who don't want to be mothers. Is that realistic?
To date, there's over 400,000 children in America looking for homes, waiting for homes. I imagine praying every night that they had somewhere safe to land, including in New Mexico. I feel this is a talking point that works well, but frankly, if these folks wanted to show up and give kids a chance at a different life, they could do so already.
Let's move on to what abortion access looks like right now in New Mexico and what we expect as patients come from neighboring Texas, Oklahoma, and many other farther away states for abortion care.
To be real, New Mexico has been a place where people have come from across the country over years now, decades really, because as other states that were hostile to abortion access began to put restrictions and barriers in place of women and people seeking care, they had to come here. We've already seen with the implementation of SB 8 in Texas over the year previous, before that when Governor Abbott declared that abortion was not essential health care, that when restrictions roll out in other states, that does increase the wait time to get in to see a New Mexico provider, to get into a New Mexico clinic. That's why I'm really proud of the incredible folks that have lifted abortion access in New Mexico. They are working every day to do what they can to expand services, because right now New Mexicans are waiting longer for care, and so are so many people that are coming from across the country to find that care here.
Mexico it now might be an option for some women. Is that something you support?
The Mexican Supreme Court actually, in the face of what was happening in our country, did the opposite. They decriminalized what they call the interrupción legal de my Spanish is terrible. They just did something called ILE that translates to the legal interruption of a pregnancy just several months ago. So up to a certain point in pregnancy, no one can any longer be criminalized for seeking access to that health care. So it's real. I've already been honored to spend time across 3 Mexican states in recent months learning from that model about what it means to reimagine people accessing abortion care.
Let's talk about Jackson's women's health from Mississippi moving to Las Cruces. Do you know what that timeline might look like?
I don't know the timeline, but certainly for me, as someone that was raised in this community and honored to be raising up my little ones today, it feels pretty surreal that the clinic in the center of this case, Jackson's Women's Health Organization, this case that overturned Roe v. Wade, of all the places in the country, is coming here to where we call home. And for me, it's like I said, surreal, but it also means a lot that our small town, with our diversity and our care and consideration for each other, is going to be a landing spot both for this clinic and the people from around the country that come here to get the care they want and need.
Do you anticipate that there will be safety concerns surrounding these clinics?
Unfortunately, yes. What we've seen and known over many, many years now is that anti-abortion extremists are violent, they're armed, and they have killed people in the name of their agenda. New Mexico and some of the providers that do services and care in Albuquerque started practicing here when anti-abortion extremists went to Kansas and murdered Dr. Tiller when he was in his place of faith on a Sunday morning. He was ready to deliver communion, and they executed him in his place of faith. After that happened in Kansas, there were anti-abortion extremists who moved to Albuquerque to point their energy and hate at our providers and our advocates here. So certainly, from the firebombing to the assassination, it's going to be a reason for concern.
And Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham recently signed an executive order protecting abortion rights in the state. It, quote, protects healthcare providers from discipline due to an out-of-state resident receiving abortion services in New Mexico. It makes clear that the state will not cooperate with extradition attempts from other states where criminal charges are being pursued against an individual for receiving or performing reproductive services. And it prohibits state agencies from cooperating in another state's investigation into a person or other entity for receiving or delivering reproductive services. It seems like a wild new frontier in terms of what one state will try to do in another state. Do you really have a sense for what that might shape up to be like?
So much of this is changing day to day. There are legal battles in the courts from Texas to Utah to Louisiana to Florida today announced that there are some temporary restraining orders on the implementation of these bans. What has been made clear, thanks to the position of our governor, the demonstrated values of our New Mexico legislator, and in conversations I've had with our New Mexico Attorney General Valderas, is that New Mexico is ready to make sure that not Texas or Oklahoma nor Missouri or anyone else has the legal room to long arm with their policy and agenda and try to dictate what is legal activity in our state. We aren't going to stand for it. We've made that clear, and I'm proud of all the ways we're making sure that our New Mexican values are ready for this moment.
For almost 50 years, Roe v. Wade was the law of the land. Democrats are coming under some criticism on the national level for not codifying the law. Was there a time in the last 50 years that you think there was a window for that to happen, and should it have happened?
It's hard to look back now and say that there was a moment where that was possible, but what I am proud to say is that in New Mexico, again, we trusted the voices and expertise of Indigenous leaders, Black leaders, other communities of color saying, we know it's coming, it's time to make sure we have what we need in place to continue access to care. I hope, as we've seen what it looks like in this country to trust Black women in places like Georgia, who saved the soul of the country with their win in the Senate, that we continue to trust people that have been most impacted by these issues to lead the way as we reimagine what access looks like.
In the face of the Supreme Court decision, what do you think is the right policy path forward for Democrats and for Republicans, for that matter, who support abortion rights?
Here in New Mexico, we need to let some things settle and really pay attention to the key areas where we may need to do more to shore up protection. For now, we are solid. Protection for abortion will remain in place. Abortion will remain legal for the unforeseeable future. At the federal level, I think it's time for people to talk about abortion out loud, to talk about removing restrictions on using federal dollars for going towards abortion care, and for really stepping into what this moment means as a human rights crisis, as a public health crisis, and making this a part of the conversations we're having about what Americans deserve to thrive in our country every day.
It is Justice Thomas who, in his concurring opinion, writes that these decisions, other decisions could be revisited. Griswold, Lawrence, Obergefell. Of course, it was only 1967 that interracial marriage was protected in Loving v. Virginia. During Ketanji Brown Jackson's confirmation hearing, a Republican senator from Indiana, Mike Braun, was asked about whether he thought states should decide laws on interracial marriage, and he said it would be hypocritical to say that they should decide that on abortion and not interracial marriage. Do you think that Justice Thomas is missing something here, or do you think that we really should not be concerned about a slippery slope of unenumerated rights going away?
I think we should absolutely be terrified. What happened over this Supreme Court term was devastating. From the ways they tore apart the rights of sovereign nations to protect their sovereign citizens in decisions that came out this week, from the decisions they made to roll back the authority of the Environmental Protection Agency to show up on climate change, to what they're doing to election law. This is terrifying. I'm grateful that for the first time ever, we have a Black woman in Justice Jackson, who I believe was confirmed earlier today, to shape a different voice and face of the Supreme Court. But what's happening, and we've seen it reported in so many ways, this may be one of the most substantial terms in modern history, based just on the depth of what the court took on and ultimately where they decided.
And I'll say on this day being June 30th, when we're having this conversation, the day that Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson became Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Yes.
District 33 State Representative Micaela Lara Cadena, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. We appreciate having you.
Thank you, Casey.
And that's all the time for now. Join us this week on KRWG Radio. Every weekday, it's Morning Edition from 5 a.m. to 9, Fresh Air at 11, and that's followed by Here and Now from noon to 2, and All Things Considered in the afternoons from 4 to 7. KRWG News is always online at krwg.org, and we'd like to hear from you. Email us with story ideas and video submissions. The address is feedback@nmsu.edu. For all of us at KRWG News, I'm Casey Counts. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time on Newsmakers.